The story is brought to us by TexasTribune.com. And it's referenced police officers who are suing the city over their indictments. But I want you to hear some things in this. Several demonstrators who participated in the protests in response to George Floyd's murder in 2020 were seriously injured when they were struck by police with less than lethal beanbag rounds. I mean, they were shooting them in their face. They were, The officers' lawsuit says they did not receive training on how to use this type of ammunition. Did you hear that? The officers are claiming we didn't get training on how to use that ammunition, but we were out there using it. I've never used a beanbag. It don't matter here. You just aim and shoot. Come on, man. Aim and shoot. That's the training they got, right? These officers actually admitted we didn't get any training on beanbag rounds. What'd they say? Just aim and shoot. There you go, bud. You don't need training. Just pull the trigger. How much training do they get on the Glock? That's what I want to know. Or the Desert Eagle. Your weapon of choice? Austin police officers face indictments over their use of force during racial justice protests in 2020 and are suing the city, saying again they didn't receive training on how to use less than lethal rounds employed during the demonstrations and that city officials knew the rounds were defective. Of course, the rounds had to be defective. Well, I tried to shoot him in the feet and somehow it hit him in the face. When protesters flooded the streets of Austin, Texas in May of 2020 after the murder of George Floyd, Austin police officers used 12-gauge shotguns to fire beanbag rounds on demonstrators. Several people were seriously wounded and sued the city, so far resulting in over $13 million in settlements. That's right, Austin, Texas. Y'all taxpayers have paid $13 million in settlements. You've paid it. You think the police department paid anything? In a lawsuit filed Wednesday, 5 officers, Joshua Jackson, Roland Rast, Todd Gilbertson, Derek Lehman, and Alexander Lomofstiff, said they received limited or no training about the beanbag rounds. Police officers across the units were asked to respond to the protests, including patrolmen and detectives with little training on riot response. But they have training as cops, right? I mean, okay, you don't have riot response. I get that. Maybe they were just trained to be patrol cops, beat cops. You know how to be a patrol officer, right? I'm a fireman, but gee, I've never put out a warehouse fire before. How do you use this hose again? It goes on and it talks more about the protests and using the rounds and so forth. Austin Police Chief Joseph Chacon said the beanbag rounds used were defective. Well, if he's the police chief. If he knew they were defective, he should have been like, we're not using those. No, he was like, I don't care. Just shoot them, man. Just aim and pull the trigger. You can click the link below and read all this. The officers are seeking over $1 million in compensation for the physical injuries, post-traumatic stress, and lost wages that resulted from their involvement in the protests and what they are calling negligent leadership. Yeah, pass the buck. It's that guy's fault.